Don't eat it. So my cats think that I've brought this vinegar water, which is not for you, down to the floor for them. That is not the reason. The reason is because my kitchen is such a mess that I don't feel like showing you the whole thing. There are downsides to spending so much time in the garden, is that there's not a whole lot of time to do the rest of the chores sometimes. But yeah, so I have cuddly buddies that are really curious about this right here. So this is the outcome of about 40 minutes of harvesting, probably about that amount of time worth of harvesting at that stand of Saskatoons that I just posted a video about. And while it was fresh in my mind, I also wanted to just say a little bit about the experience of harvesting in the city. So, I mean, like, these are pretty much ready to go. I'm giving them a vinegar soak, and then I'm going to pull them out of there and put them on paper towels to dry, and then I'm going to pop them in the freezer. And that's it. That's all we're doing with these. Traditionally, they would be dried or cooked. They are a main ingredient of a historic thing called pemmican, which is rubbing berries into buffalo meat in order to turn it into jerky. These are the actual native plant that was used for that by the native population. Typically, they cooked it in order to dry it, or they dried it as berries. There were also patties. There was quite a few desserts that they were involved in. There was a corn mash that they would. I've been reading the Ethnobotanical Dictionary of native plants recently, so I can rattle off quite a few things they used to do with these little black and red berries here that are very wet because I'm just making sure they're clean. So I'm soaking them in a vinegar solution. It's like it's like a quarter cup of vinegar in however big a bowl this is worth of water. And I'm noticing I got quite a few stems in the process, so like while I'm talking to you, I'm looking over here and picking them out at the same time, but I don't expect to get them all out. There's also a few that are a little desiccated or dried, which is fine, but maybe I'll pull them out, maybe I won't. But the idea is to get these frozen as quickly as possible while they're as fresh as they can be. It is probably important to note that like if you were going to eat like 5 cups of these, just like apples and just like various different fruit that are, like elderberries, and people forget how bioavailable cyanide is. So cyanide is a very, very common fruit and plant compound, and it is a reason that some plants you might just get a little ill. It's not going to hurt you that much because there's a very low count. And cyanide, another thing to remember, is that it is both heat and drying sensitive. So it does not hold up if you cook it. It does not hold up if you dry it. And since this plant was a major part of many native diets, that is the reason that they cooked it or dried it before consuming it, since they were taking in quite a bit of this plant. So that's something that you'll want to take into consideration, that you can eat them like blueberries raw and they're delicious, but maybe don't eat a pound of them like that all in one sitting. It's pretty innocuous, but you might not feel great if you eat a ton of them. So in keeping with the tradition of them being very good cooked, I've had them cooked and they cook up wonderfully. In fact, they're better cooked than they are raw off the plant, which is, I think, unusual. So I'm just going to freeze them since I have so many, and then use them throughout the year. And I'm super excited because I barely got 5 handfuls off of my plants. And so I did want to talk about the experience of city harvesting, because I mentioned really briefly in the video of me finding these and starting to pick them that I was not going to let myself be city harvest shamed. And I think that's something that a lot of people underestimate, is that, at least in the American culture, it is really quite frowned upon to be picking off of a public land tree or any plant that's just around. Many people are just... Okay, so I got some looks. There were very few people on this particular street, so I really only encountered 4 people, 2 of whom were walking a dog, and one of them was a little family that was going to the restaurant down the street. And so the experience was, with the 2 people that were walking a dog, one pretended I didn't exist at all. Another one gave me several sideways glances. It's a combination of, like, curiosity, confusion, and concern. Like, they're not sure if you're starving and you're really that hungry. They're not sure if you know enough to be harvesting off of a random plant and you're actually later going to die, and they don't want to interact with you just in case. So there is that to be considered. And then the third had a small family, and the child got shushed away from me, I guess. She wanted to come over and see what berries I was picking. It was kind of adorable to hear her say it, but they're like, "No, honey, we're gonna go have dinner," and they did not allow her to come interact with me. On the other hand, there have been times when I'm standing around eating mulberries straight off a plant, because I think this might have been different since I was harvesting them into a bag. People get a little bit more curious when you're, like, putting them straight in your mouth and just, like, standing there eating straight off the plant, which I do with mulberries on the frequent. And there's one mulberry plant that fruits quite nicely that is up on a old disconnected railroad bridge down near my bus stop, and a lot of times it's like past dinner time, I'm coming back, and I'm like, I'm gonna eat the stinking mulberries. They've already started fruiting, so but the ones up on the hill are fruiting better than that one so far. I think they trimmed that tree a little bit, so I need to go check on it. But the big difference that I noticed down there, especially around the bus stop, in a very populated area where I'm only about 6 feet away from, like, the main bus stop, and people are curious and they're walking along, and I ran into, some people will just stop and start talking to me about, like, "Oh, what do you have? What is that? That's so cool." Which I think is really a better reaction than the, like, "Oh, what is that? I'm not gonna look," like, it's like they're treating you like you're super shifty. See, yeah, there are some sociological considerations in harvesting off of plants that are in a shopping mall area. Even though I know very well that these are definitely Saskatoons. We have the gray bark. The berries have a crown on them, which I've recently learned there aren't any poisonous crowned berries. They have the black, soft texture. The leaves have the serrated edges. They're ovate. They're heavily veined. The bottom's soft. The top is smooth. Nothing about them shiny. Like, those are some identifying features of Saskatoons. Plus, I grow the plant myself, so I'm very intimately, like, involved with this plant directly on the regular, so it's an easy recognize for me. If you don't know what you're looking at, do not eat it. So you have to be really, really sure you know what you're looking at. So it's pretty important to keep that in mind, and just, make sure you don't pick something that's going to hurt you in any way. And also keep in mind that you're probably going to get some strange looks. You might get somebody saying something negative. You might get people avoiding you with, like, a really wide walking around you, like 10 feet away, going out of their way to be nowhere near you. You might get a little kid run up to you and be excited, which is awesome. But, if you do, make sure you don't just encourage kids to go eat berries, because, like, you could kill somebody's kid like that. That's no good. So it's an important thing to keep in mind that, that there are reasons that we don't just plant food as city street plants, and it's because everyone's too embarrassed to go pick the food. So, if you are going to start doing that, be emotionally ready for strange interaction. Nothing too crazy, but a little bit weird. So, I hope you're having a great harvest season. It's solidly berry season right now, and I'm super excited. So I'm going to finish up with putting these out on a drying rack, and then I'll freeze them up maybe tomorrow, maybe tonight, I don't know, depending on how fast they dry. So, have a great evening. Bye!